Hey guys, welcome back to the pod. This is the astrology series on the Weaving Sacred Stories podcast / YouTube channel / place where I can just flow freely and express what's on my heart and on my mind. Let's talk about the Gemini Sagittarius axis, shall we? So we are wrapping up Scorpio season here soon, and we will be moving into Sagittarius. The sun will move into Sag. It's not quite there yet, and so I would say that this episode is going to be kind of like obviously messages are always timeless, so you can always come back and listen to this when the sun goes into Sag, or later in life when you're having Gemini Sagittarius themes and you need to come back to the 3rd and the 9th house and take the medicine. So let's get into it. First, let's talk about Gemini. Okay, the 3rd house. Gemini energy. So we're dealing with Mercury and Jupiter. Gemini energy, ruled by mercurial, is curiosity. In some astrology practices, people refer to the 3rd and the 9th house as the lower and higher mind. Now, when I say lower mind, people sometimes take that in a negative connotation, and that's not how I mean it at all, and that's not how others mean it. We mean the child mind. The sometimes naive, sometimes it's a learning. So when we are children, our brains are sponges, and we are not programmed yet by society, culture, religion, spirituality. We're not programmed by the labels that are put on us because we're children. We're still fresh. We're still new. We've just come from source. And so there's a lot of just innocence, right? That's why kids, they ask so many questions. They're always asking questions, and they're always inquiring to inquire. And this really moves into this Sagittarius energy of the seeker. And, where do I want to go? There's so many things I could say about Gemini and Mercury, but that's also just part of, Gemini is like the many aspects, the many ways, the many, truths. Gemini is all about there's always multiple ways, truths, perspectives. It's also where I believe personally in my practice, culture starts. So if the 4th house is our roots and our traditions and like family and home and belonging, the 3rd house is like the building blocks to that. So in a lot of ways, Gemini energy is, let's see, I kind of lost the channel there for a minute. Gemini energy shows us the beauty in differences. Because Gemini grows into the traveler or the seeker or someone who likes adventure and tasting different cultures' foods and listening to different music. And, Sagittarius can be this, nomadic lifestyle, hopping in a van and moving through all the states and it wants to taste different culture, traveling abroad, studying abroad, like someone who wants to go somewhere completely new and soak up that wisdom, of somewhere different, of people who are different. It stems from this Gemini 3rd housey, like individual, it's the roots of that. It's the roots of culture. It's where things begin. So there's a creative, there's a foundation where, I don't know why this is so hard for me to explain. I think it's because there's something profound about a child being able to make something completely new again. Like bringing that childlike wonder, that newness, that freshness, that, yes, children can be naive and yes, children don't always get it, right? Because the world is a harsh place, and kids can get themselves into trouble because they just trust so freely. And yes, I get that. There's a shadow aspect to the third house. That's pretty scary, actually. If you don't mature, there can be a naivety that's worrisome, right? Eventually we do have to mature in our life, and I get that. But if you can hold on to this innocence that we all carry before we're ever traumatized, or before we get programmed by society and culture and our parents or the church or the religion or the spirituality or whatever dogma or whatever it is, before the programming, before we commit to a title, an identity, a lifestyle, a way, before we go on the journey of our own self-identity, before we go on the journey of career and home, and before we go on the journey of community, before we reach these other places, before we fall in love even, take it back to the beginning, almost the beginning of our essence. And this is the magic of Gemini. Take it back to the strip away everything else, every other story that you've ever written about yourself, even before you fall in love, right? Because a 5-year-old has not experienced the heartbreak of growing really intimately close with somebody and then losing them or breaking up or whatever. A 5-year-old has yet to even have their heart broken in a romantic sense. Strip it all down to the bare bones. That is this beautiful core of Gemini. Who you were before everything else, source in its purest, most beautiful form. Think of an animal, and think of the animal and how animals are so loving, and they love without condition. And not only do they love without conditions or this for that transaction, or animals don't love with this idea of you, a fantasy of you. They don't hold anything over your head except for, maybe feed me, right? Kids, they want to be fed, and anytime a kid's behavior is crazy, it's are you hungry? Are you tired? Yeah, children are pure of heart, and so are animals. And there's a purity to Gemini energy. There's a purity to Mercury. And that's why Mercury is associated with angels in a lot of ways, is because, Mercury is the messenger of the gods. And the messenger is protected because the divine protects the angel. The divine sends the angel to spread the messages and to channel. And kids are channels. If you've ever paid attention, they say things that only God would know about you, and there's real beauty in that. There's also a silliness. There's a humor to Gemini, because before the world gets so serious, there's a freedom. There's just my heart is really, Mercury is such a beautiful planet, and I love Mercury a lot. So how does this, move into this maturing, this higher mind, this Sagittarian, this Sagittarius energy? Sagittarius becomes, the curiosity turns into seeking. It turns into the quest for God in a lot of ways, the quest for home. Sagittarius becomes a quest. It becomes the hero's journey in a lot of ways. Sagittarius is always moving. They're both mutable, so this is a mutable axis. Gemini is a mutable sign, and so is Sag. So mutable air and mutable fire. So this, axis really ignites a flame of what I like to call the search for the deepest truth. And because Gemini can see many different paths, many different truths, and kind of is a gatherer of information, Mercury is a gathering energy. Sagittarius is really wanting the deepest truth of them all. And that's beautiful. And this is where Sagittarius and its shadow can become dogmatic because deep down inside, we want to know God. And I might get a little bit emotional. I'm not really sure. This is a free flow. This is just completely free flowing. I'm not sure how much I'll edit this. And I really like that sometimes. It's just not even editing and saying a lot. Sagittarius is searching for God in everything. And we want to be able to hold on to one truth. We want there to be this one thing. Like, we want that. There's a part of us. Go look where Sag is in your chart. Go look where Sagittarius is in your chart. Go look at where Gemini is in your chart. Go look at where Jupiter and Mercury are. And, look at your 9th and your 3rd house and just let the energy speak to you. And apply the energies to your own chart. So, maybe you're a truth seeker in the 5th house. What's the deepest truth around creativity and pleasure and sovereignty? Maybe your Jupiter and your Sag are in the 12th or in the 1st or whatever. So you have to feel for you what's true for your own natal chart. But in general, Sagittarius wants the deepest truth, and sometimes at all costs, including other people's truths and including, the higher expression of Sag is accepting of all cultures, religions, faiths, being accepting of the fact that diversity enriches our lives. And when we take out diversity, we become a monoculture. And so the shadow side of Sag is becoming a tyrant. This is the one way. This is the one truth. This is the one thing and this only. And that is scary. We all have the ability to become this tyrant in some fashion or form. And in order to protect ourselves from the inner tyrant, the outer tyrant, the tyrant within and without, because it's both and always inner and outer, feminine and masculine, in order to overcome it, we have to be able to honor our deepest truth while simultaneously honoring another's. And not trying to change people, and being willing to let go if something is misaligned, and be willing to not entangle ourselves in things that don't align with our deepest truth, but at the same time, there's a cost, right? There's a cost to being dogmatic about your life. It has to be this way. It has to be this one truth. It has to be this one faith, this one religion. It has to be this way. It doesn't even have to be necessarily about spirituality, but since it's since we're dealing with the 9th house, that's just usually that's how this shows up. But it can also just be your belief systems around lots of things, your belief systems around love, your belief systems around relationships and, maybe it's drugs and substances, your belief systems around the nature of reality, your beliefs around yourself. Sometimes we become this tyrant to ourselves around who we think we are. Sagittarius is a persistent energy that has a lot of energy that needs to be channeled properly, or else it can become a tyrant to themselves and others. It can become really dogmatic. It can become the seeking forever, There's a lack of stillness in that. There's a lack of presence in that sometimes. So you kind of get the shadow of Gemini, which is naivety and, immaturity, and the shadow of Sag, which is this restlessness for constantly needing to find God and not really being happy with anything or becoming dogmatic. And so in order to avoid these things, we need to play to the planet's strengths. We need to evolve the expressions of self in these ways that we express. So here is some medicine to these. Understand that life is dualistic and that life is paradoxical and that many things are true at once. And when you can find the balance between opposites, when you can find love and appreciation for opposing views and ways of living, when you can honor another person's culture, religion, faith, when you can find the beauty and the resonance in all of it, when you can really just be open, right? Be open-minded, open-hearted. Don't close up. Don't put up walls. Don't avoid other people's truths just because it threatens your own. Be open to being taught and to teaching. This is also the student and the teacher, the 3rd and 9th house, the Gemini Sagittarius axis. It's the student and the teacher. And every great teacher is open to becoming a student, again, being a student of life. This takes humility. This takes a lot of setting the ego down in honor of expanding our consciousness and in our minds and our hearts to new ways, and to not get stuck in thinking that we have it all figured out all the time. So remain curious, my loves. Remain open. Remain teachable. And yes, God is real and God loves you, and there's many ways that God shows up in the world. And don't limit God. Don't put God in a box. As soon as you think you have it figured out, as soon as you think you have the answers, there's more questions. And these are the mysteries of God. And Sagittarius in many ways, they can find stillness, but it's one of their challenges. But once they master it, they become this beautiful, receptive. It can be a very receptive energy as well to, as long as you're curious about what's next, the adventure becomes fun. It's an adventure, right? So it's not about the destination, it's about the journey, and finding those moments of epiphany and realization, and continuing to study and practice and come into your embodiment of these things as well. So yes, this is the Sagittarius Gemini axis. There's so much more I could say about these two energies, but this is what I wanted to channel through today. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys soon. Love you.